Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Rudolph, and I am the Baltimore Regional Director with Maryland Capital Enterprises. And today we're going to be talking about cash flow projections, access to capital, and business plans. So, who we are. So, Maryland Capital Enterprises, we've been around since 1998, giving small business loans on the Eastern Shore. We started doing $500 loans to small businesses on the Lower Shore, grew, became an SBA intermediary lender, and then crossed the bridge to the Western Shore. So we are now able to serve Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and we just actually added Harford County and Cecil County, along with the entirety of the Eastern Shore. In 2020, we also became a women's business center, so we can offer enhanced services to women and minority-owned businesses. For more info, you can check us out at marylandcapital.org or Women's Business Center at marylandcapitalenterprises.org. So, one thing that we do is we lend funds, and we are an SBA intermediary lender. And what that means is that the SBA has approved us to make loans that they will back. So there are no loans that are given out by the SBA unless it's during a time of emergency, like during the pandemic, or when areas are hit with natural disasters. We do get money to lend out from the federal government, from the state government, from banks, and private foundations. And what we do is when we approve a loan, we figure out what pot of money makes the most sense, and that's where that comes from. All the loans are the same to the user. But very importantly, whether or not you're applying for a loan, we offer what we call technical assistance, and that's free one-on-one counseling, webinars just like this one, classroom sessions, our annual Women's Business Center conference, and much, much more. And all of that is available to you whether or not you're going to be applying for a loan with us. So before we even get started on the cash flows, we are going to need a business plan. And so I like to think about the business as a building, right? So you go downtown in Baltimore, you see the fence, you see the sign that says there's this beautiful building coming up. You see the drawing, and then 18 months and nothing happens. What they're doing there is they're building the foundation. They're doing all the studies, the environmental studies, all that fun stuff, or not so fun stuff, to make sure that when they build, it's going to build quickly, it's going to build strong, and it's going to build sustainably. So then you notice all of a sudden everything starts to go up, and then boom, it's open and thriving. And that's how we want you to think about your business. So we want to think about writing a business plan specifically to get a loan. So who needs a business plan? Sort of what are they? So the truth is any small business owner is going to need a business plan. And that's going to help you do a number of things. First of all, it's going to help you with your loan and grant applications. Almost every single one of those is going to require a business plan with cash flow projections. So that's really important. But it's also a tool for you. It's letting you know what your plan for your business is so that you can check in and make sure that everything is going to plan. And if it's not, to see if you need to pivot. So it really is a document for both internal and external uses. It is the blueprint of your business. So it's not only going to just describe your business, it's going to talk about your industry and how you fit in with the industry. You're going to explain how your business is going to operate. Are you home-based? Are you brick and mortar? Are you online only? Are you going to the clients? It's also going to show us your financial plan. Do you understand what it's going to take to break even and to start your business, and how you're going to pay for the loan and your business costs? The one thing you want to think about with your business plan is your audience, right? So if you're applying for a grant, you're going to want to focus on the great stuff you're doing in the community. You're hiring from within the community, you're sponsoring the softball team, you're doing all this great stuff, because that's what funders for grants are looking for. But if you're applying for a loan for a bank, they like all that stuff and include it, but you want to make sure that you're putting the stuff that's going to show that you can repay that loan at the top of your business plan, and focus on that, because at the end of the day, a for-profit entity is most concerned with getting that money back so that they can respond to their shareholders. And that's perfectly fine. And it's a great resource for small businesses. So, what specifically is a bank looking for in a business plan? And as the picture says, the main question is, can they pay back this loan? And that's really, really, really the long and the short of it. So they're looking for a few different things. Number one, they're looking for passion. So they want to know that you've got a reason for starting the business and that you've got a drive to continue the business. So, a lot of folks will say something like, I saw the way that my elder relatives were treated in assisted living. I didn't like that. I want to make sure that the next generation has a better experience. Something like that. That's going to show us how you've got that passion. Then we've got your expertise. So do you have experience in the field? And if not, can you get that education through a mentorship? And do you need certifications and training? Then we're looking for your research in your business plan. So do you understand your market and your target customers? Who are going to be the majority of the folks coming into your store? And can you market to those folks completely? Also, do you have contingency plans? Is your business going to be able to operate if you are unable to work for 2 weeks or 2 months or 6 months? How is that going to work? And one thing folks often forget to do is include an ask in their business plan. And that's huge. You want the reader right at the beginning to understand who you are, what you do, and what you're looking for. And that's going to help them read the whole thing with that question in mind so that they're going to be able to probably get you a better chance of a yes because they know what you're asking for. So we break the business plan into 4 parts. The first one is the executive summary, but it's really important to know that we cannot tell your story better than you can. You are the best at telling your stories. So if you need, if you feel like you want to do it in a different order or different sections, as long as this information is in here, you are going to be good to go. Okay, I got a question about YouTube. The slides will be available. We're also going to do a cash flow presentation, and both the blank and the completed one will be available as well. So one thing that's important when we're thinking about business plans is that, yes, we do want them to look professional. Make sure that you're checking your spelling and all of that stuff. Doesn't need to be perfect, though. So the reason for that is we want to know that you wrote it. There's so much AI. There's folks out there that are writing business plans, and we can often get generic business plans, for the same industry that look the same. And that's not showing your expertise. It's not showing your passion. So AI is a great tool to help you write your business plan, but you really want to make sure that the plan is in your voice, because that's going to be the best way to help you tell your story. Which is, of course, very, very important. So the executive summary. This is one of the more important parts of your business plan, because this is going to catch the reader's attention. So as I said earlier, you want to make sure that they know who you are, what you do, and what you're looking for. And I actually suggest that be the first sentence in your business plan. So think about, we're going to be doing cash flows for a fake business that I made up in my head called Nick's Dill Pickles. So my opening sentence would be something like, Nick's Dill Pickles LLC is a pickling wholesaler operated by Nick Rudolph in Baltimore, Maryland. We are seeking a loan of $10,000 to purchase new pickling equipment. So there you go, 2 sentences. The person knows who I am, where I am, the structure of my business, what I do, and what I'm looking for. And then we can go into our story. Talk about what drew you to the business. As I use the elder care example, but it can be other things as well. You just really love hair, and so you wanted to open a salon. There's lots of reasons to start a business, and we just want to know, what drew you to it. Then a brief description of your business, especially what is it that you do that is going to set you apart from the competition? What is your special sauce? So that can be lots of things. It can be a product that nobody else offers, a service that nobody else offers. It could be in your pricing. It could be in your customer service. It could be, the ability to do something online that nobody else is able to offer online. There's just so much there that could be your special sauce. And the more you talk about your business, the more you're going to be able to figure out what that is. Then you want to make sure that you've got that detailed ask. So at the beginning, I'm saying I want 10,000 for pickling equipment. Now I'm going to say, with the 10,000, I'm going to be able to buy, again, these are fake numbers for a fake business, 3 more pickling machines and enough jars, lids, and labels to get me through the first 3 months, something like that. And then also you want to, at that point, you're leading the folks into the next section, which I consider to be the most important section, which is your marketing plan. And this is much more than how you are going to advertise your business. In fact, this is going to be the largest section of most business plans, except for ones that might have a bunch of pictures and things like that in them. So what you want to be doing in this is describing your industry, showing who your target customer base is, and showing that you understand your competition. And you're going to be doing that through your pricing policies, how you're going to be getting materials, your marketing strategy, your future plans, and understanding your competitive edge. And the way you do that is you do your market research. You make sure that there is room for your business in the market, and Google is your best friend there. All you need to be doing is saying, let's say I'm opening a salon, salon industry trends in the Baltimore region. You'll probably find an article that's going to show how it's going, and it's going to show, it'll say something like, over the next 10 years, the industry is expected to grow X%. And then if you can pull a quote out of that, that's really helpful. Then we talk about your target customer. And as I said before, you can't say that everybody is your target customer. You may be able to serve everybody, but when you're marketing, you want to drill down on the folks that are going to be there the most. So if you are opening up that assisted living facility, your target customer are going to be, the elderly and the adult children of the elderly. So, you might also be able to help, middle-aged folks with disabilities, but they're not going to be the meat and potatoes of your business. So you want to make sure that you're targeting most of that advertising at those folks and where those folks are going to be. Then you want to talk about your competition. Huge here. You want to list at least 3 competitors, and you want to say what they are doing well, because they exist, they're open, you want to be doing the same thing, so they must be doing something right. Then you want to talk about how you're going to compete with them. You want to talk about what that special sauce is. And so, like I said before, it can be the cost, it can be the service, it can be, the materials that you offer, anything like that. And when you're thinking about competitors, you want to think locally, regionally, and then national/internationally. What does that mean? Well, we had a comic book store, and they said, look, our competitors that we're going to list are these 2 other comic book stores that are within 20 miles of us, and Amazon.com, because we're going to have to compete with the fact that folks can buy just about everything that we have in our store from the comfort of their own couch. So it shows that they understood who all of their competition was. That made it a little bit easier to get them the loan. Then you want to talk about your pricing strategy. Are you, a high-end, middle of the road, or a value proposition? And there's room in the market for all of those. So you just want to figure out what works best for you and for your client base. Then you want to talk about the actual advertising or marketing. How are you going to get the word out? And hugely important in this is you can't just say, I will have a social media campaign. Tell us exactly what is going to be in that social media campaign. And also you want to think about other ways that you're going to be doing marketing. For instance, in that assisted living facility, doing advertisements is not really necessarily the best way to do all of your marketing, because you might want to be going and, talking to hospitals and talking to providers so that they will be able to refer patients to you. So, you might be spending some of that on networking, or you might be spending some of it on going to conferences. So you want to think about advertising as much more than just the ads that you're doing. So before I move into the operation and organization section, are there any questions about the marketing or the executive summary? All righty. If you think of any questions, just feel free to unmute yourself and I'll be happy to answer them. So the next section is going to be your organization and operations section. So this is where you're going to talk about how your business is going to run. Again, talk about your legal structure, talk about your location, home-based, brick and mortar, online, multiple locations, you're doing deliveries, whatever it is. Talk about your hours. If you're brick and mortar, when are your doors open? If you're not, when are you answering the phone? You also want to think about who is going to be handling customer complaints, who is going to be handling the reordering and all of that kind of thing. And that's where you're thinking about your employees. Is this something that you're running on your own, or is this something where you're going to need some help? And if you are, what's the management structure going to look like? Who's going to be doing the hiring and the supervision of the employees? Are they going to be contractors? Are they going to be W-9 employees? questions like that you want to ask yourself. You also want to be thinking about how much you're going to be paying folks and how you're going to handle raises and things like that. You then want to think about your insurance. Every single small business needs insurance, at least a general liability policy, which can run $600 to about $1,000. But if you start introducing things like travel, children, medicine, animals, anything like that, those numbers can go up pretty significantly. So you really want to get to know your insurance agent before you need that insurance so that you know what you need and you can save up enough or ask for enough to get that. Then you want to talk about your growth. Are you planning on just having one flower shop because that's what you want to do and you don't need to have multiple locations? That's perfectly fine. Do you have an idea that you think can franchise? That's fine too. Are you a serial entrepreneur who likes to open up a business for 5 or 6 years, close it and open up another one? That is totally cool. We just want to know what that plan is. Additionally, what is your exit strategy? Are you planning on handing this down to your children? Are you planning on selling it? Are you planning on closing it when you retire? There's lots of different things you can do. There is no right or wrong answer, but we just want to know that you're thinking about that. Again, as I said, the contingency. So, what if you're out for a long period of time? How does the business run? And, there is a little bit of a COVID pops right now. So, just talk about what would happen if an employee or a customer tests positive, if you are customer facing, and, how you would let folks know. This just needs to be a sentence or two. Then we're going to talk about the financial plan. And this is actually a lot easier than most folks think because a lot of this is going to be provided in the addendums to the business plan, like the cash flow that we're going to be going over. But if you are a startup, we're going to want to know what your startup costs are. And hopefully you've got quotes for everything you need to buy so you can list it out and say where you're going to get it from so we know exactly what you need. If you're an existing business, we're going to still want to know those quotes, but we're going to want to see historical data about your business. Historical data includes your taxes, your profit and loss statements, and your quarterly balance sheet. We want to know what your break even is. How many customers, how many sales do you need to make a month to pay your bills, pay your employees, and pay yourself? Cash flow projections, we require 24 months. Lots of places require 36 months. We're going to go into great detail what we're going to do with that. And then your credit, especially when you're applying to a CDFI, which is what we are. We are a community development financial institution. A lot of people think of us as nonprofit banks, but we really do a lot more than that. So we're able to give loans to folks that oftentimes banks can't. It doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to get the loan, but we just have a little bit easier job of getting them out. So if you have a credit issue, like a bankruptcy in the past, some missed payments in the past, if you discuss it in your business plan, then it's not going to be a surprise when we pull your credit report. And it'll be something that we'll be able to mitigate and hopefully get over so that we can get you that loan. You then want to also talk about, a possibility of a guarantor. If you know your credit isn't great, but you've got somebody who's also willing to co-sign, let us know about that as well. So we're going to move into cash flow projections, but I just wanted to give folks just a minute or two to see or a second or two to see if you have any questions about the business plan. Nope. All righty. We're going to move forward. What are cash flow projections? Well, they show the amount of money that's coming in and the amount of money that's going out to figure out whether or not you're making a profit. So, if you're bringing in $1 million a week and you're spending $1.5 million a week, you're not doing so well. So you really want to know what's going in and what's going out. So the cash flow is an application document. Ours looks just like this. You don't need to use ours. You can use whichever one looks best for you, but we do need them broken down monthly. It is really important to understand that the cash flow is a living document. It's going to change over the life of the business. Not only will the one that you send us not be 100% accurate, the majority of the cells are not going to be exactly what you say, and that's fine. You want to keep your expectations realistic. Even if you know you're going to do better than your projections, you want to make sure that you're not scaring away the lenders and the people who make the decisions by thinking you're going to grow too fast, or that you're going to be able to handle more than you have the capacity for. For instance, we had a person who made handmade one-person shop wedding invitations. They charge an average of $1,000 a wedding. They said there's an average of 10,000 weddings a year in Maryland. I'm going to make $10 million a year. Well, first of all, One Stop Shop is not doing all of that. Second of all, people elope. Not everybody gets gets the invitations, and not everybody is going to be using her invitations. So we said, show us that you can make it on 10, 15, whatever it is a month. And then if you do more, then that's just gravy and it's just beautiful. We can go with it. So then we're talking about how you're going to break stuff down. And we're going to go into detail with this, but you want to make sure you're thinking about as many income and expense streams as possible. The more detail you can get in here, the more useful this document is going to be to you as you grow your business. And it's especially useful to you if the business isn't doing as well as you thought it might. So examples for that is if you've got a business, you might break up dine-in, carry-out, and catering, or you might break it out into food, alcohol, and merchandise. So let's say you thought you were going to be doing 70 food and 30% alcohol, and after 6 months, you look and you're doing 40% alcohol and 60% food. You can use this document to say, look, is the issue here that our food program is weak and we need to strengthen it? Or is it that our drink program is strong and we want to invest into that? And this is going to help you figure that out. Same thing with your expenses. The more you can break that down, the more you see where you can cut some expenses out. Then you want to think about, does your business change month to month? If you're in retail, November and December are way busier than January. If you are in landscaping, April and May are way busier than December and January. So think about it like that. And then also, we want to make sure that you're paying yourself. You need to live a decent quality of life. So we want to make sure that you're able to take care of yourself. So why do we need to do this lengthy process? It's not actually all that long. You need them for loans. Like I said, it's a planning tool. It shows you the difference between money coming in and profit. It's good governance. Every business should do it. And it shows you when you can take more money out of the business, which is, one thing we all want to do as small business owners. So what are you going to need to do this? You're going to want to need a template, ours or somebody else's. You need to know how much money you've got in the bank for the business specifically. A lot of startups, that answer is zero, and that's okay. You want to think about all your income streams, all your expense streams. Think about your payroll, how much you're going to be paying employees. Is it based on your sales or is it based on just a monthly amount? Include your loan as income and your loan payment as expenses. People forget to do this all the time. And then know what your inventory cost is, right? So if you're selling, your jars of pickles for $10, what is it going to cost in just the inventory, not including labor and things like that, to get that out? The number I make up is a third, but it could be, different for different places. So we're going to go ahead and create a cash flow. I'm just going to stop the screen share for a second and pull right up a cash flow, and then we're just going to do this together. All right, sorry, that took a second, but here we are. So this is our cash flow worksheet. So this is for Nick's Dills. This is going to be a startup business. It's, again, not a real business, not real numbers. I don't know a darn thing about this industry. So we're just talking about, hypotheticals here. So Nick's Dill Pickles is going to be canning pickles in Baltimore City and selling them in farmers markets, wholesale to restaurants, and then of course we'll be able to sell some online. So how much money do I have on hand to start the business? I've got $0. So in month one, I've got $0. Now this was of course an older spreadsheet. It was set up a while ago. So now I'm going to set it up for today's date. So I'm applying in September, which means I'm not getting the money until October. So we're going to start it there. Then you'll see it'll just change everything there. If you are not a business that has seasonal sales, you don't really need to think about these as October, November, December. It's more months 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's just, the names of the months up top are not as important as the numbers down below. So $0 to start, just like everybody else. But we got our money in October. We were able to get some pickling done. We're only going to be able to sell for the last 2 weekends at the farmers markets. So there is still 2 farmers markets in Baltimore on the weekends. There's the Waverly and the I-83 market. So if I go to both of those, probably starting off, I'm going to be doing that alone. I will probably make over the course of those 2 weekends somewhere around $1,500. I am not going to be trying to go wholesale at the beginning, but I'm going to have some online sales because friends and family are going to buy it and things like that. November, the markets are still open. It's getting cooler, but people are buying presents and food is becoming a more popular present. So, we're going to see a jump there. A restaurant stopped by the booth at the Waverly Farmers Market. They want to start using my pickles on their burgers, and I'm making $250 a month off of off of them. And I'm just going to keep that online sales just all the way through the year at $500 a month. So then December, we still have both. There's gifts going on, but it is colder, so we're probably not going to go up quite as high. Then we've got our wholesale, we're going to add one restaurant a month. That's the goal. January, we're down to just one farmer's market. And it's going to be cold. It's not going to be that busy. So I think I'm going down to $1,000. But this is coming up to $750. February, we're going to do a little bit better. We're going to get some more restaurants. March, it's starting to get nicer. People are coming out. We're probably going to see a decent jump because people know who we are now because they're eating them in those restaurants. April, it's beautiful. They're getting ready for the other market. So we're going to have a good April. We're going to add that next restaurant. May, both markets are open, and the bigger one is the one that's closed over the winter. So we're going to see a huge jump. So we'll call that 7,500. Again, we're just adding one restaurant. Now we're not going to see as big of a jump because we're not adding a whole new income stream, but we are going to see an increase in sales and an additional restaurant. July, again, an increase in sales, an additional restaurant. August, it's super busy. There's tourists around. We're going to see a bigger increase in sales, and we are adding another restaurant. And then September, same thing. It's beautiful. People are out. We're going to see a big increase in sales, and we're adding that last restaurant. Then I need my loan of $10,000. What I am showing here is that at the end of the year, including my loan as income, I'm doing $93,250 in sales. So then I want to think about my inventory. So my inventory is a percentage of my sales. So that's sort of a restaurant food cost type thing. So I'm going to do a sum, and then I'm going to check here. And I'm going to see where my sales are. So they are in 13, 14, and 15. So I can just change this to C13, little semicolon, C15, the close parentheses. And I am just going to say that my inventory cost is 20%. So I'll multiply that by 0.20. So then this number should be 20% of the total except for that $10,000. Then we're going to copy that formula. It'll just readjust the cells, and then we know what our inventory costs are for the year. So selling $83,250 is going to cost us $16,650. Now, we are going to start in March adding some employees to help me out. They would, in this case, be contractors, but we're going to say that they're W-9 so that we can put the payroll expenses in this one. All right. So let's just say $300 a month while there's one farmer's market and $750 a month while there's two farmer's markets. I like to put about a 10% payroll cost, which is what this line is set up to do. I'm home-based, so I don't need to worry about the outside services like trash. I am doing my cooking in a ghost kitchen, but the rent there is going to take care of all the utilities and all that kind of stuff. Office supplies. So this is my paper materials for my invoices. I'm probably going to have a chunk right at the beginning, and then I'll probably have a small cost each month, just for replenishing whatever runs out. Subscriptions and dues. I don't know if there's any pickling magazines, so we're not going to look at that. I don't need a storage space. Advertising, I want to get the word out early, so we'll do 500, 350, 250, 150, and then $100 a month after that. This is just a part-time business, so I'm not doing too much in there. Distribution, folks are paying their own shipping costs, so I don't really have that. Accounting and legal. you need to have an accountant and you need to have a lawyer, not necessarily on retainer, but somebody who knows about your business. And what I suggest doing is just saving 50 bucks a month in each category so that you've got the funds in case you need them for a retainer or to have a few hours of consultation. The rent at this ghost kitchen, it's just in the evenings that I'm doing it because I'm keeping my full-time job. So that's going to be $500 a month. I'm just going to add a line to my own telephone for $25 a month. Insurance, there is food involved, so I'm going to say it's $2,400 a year, so $200 a month. And then to taxes, well, I've got a $300 annual fee from the state. And then I probably have some Baltimore City Health Code stuff. I'm going to budget $500 for that. Don't need professional fees. Then I've got my loan payment at $10,000. Let's see, it's probably going to be, this is again a made up number, $450 a month. All right. Other debts, well, I don't have any yet. My startup costs. So this is where I'm buying my pickling equipment and my and just other supplies that I might need. So of that 10,000, 8,500, and then 1,500 is just a buffer for me. I've got all new equipment, so I don't need a reserve in case something breaks. And I am continuing with my job, so I don't need to pay myself in year one. So I've got $45,920 left at the end of the year. Then what you do is you copy the entirety of the spreadsheet. You go to year two, you go to that cell 1A, you paste it. Then you take that 45,000, what's that, 290? 45,290. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start looking at, how we're going to be doing sales. So I honestly think that, we're probably not increasing too much beyond this. So through December, that's what I'm going to do. Honestly, I don't think we're going to be doing that much better than these in these months, but then in March, we're going to pop back up when the weather's nicer. And then for this, we're just going to keep it at 3,000 a month. And then 7,500. Again, made up numbers, so we'll just leave this where it is right now. We don't need a second loan. You will see that the inventory expenses have changed. We are going to need employees throughout the entire year. And we're not going to need to buy the big bulk of supplies. We're not going to need to do that much, but I think I'm going to do 250 during November and December for the holidays. Accounting December, accounting, legal, rent, telephone, all that's not changing for me. We are going to be paying our loan in these 2 months. We don't need the startup costs, but I am going to, in the middle of the year, put $5,000 away in case something breaks. So now I have $123,000 left at the end of the year. I can give myself $4,000 a month. And that's a pretty nice vacation. Still have $75,000 left in the bank. So that is a very simple cash flow. Before I take it off the screen, are there any questions about the cash flow? If it's like personal about your own business numbers, we're happy to talk offline one-on-one as well. Nope. All righty. So I'm going to go back and finish up this PowerPoint. All righty. So before we finish up the cash flows, important things that you want to consider. Number one, put that first year's ending balance in the first cell of the second year. Otherwise, it's going to look like you're starting off with $0. Another issue is taking too much or too little money for yourself. Not having accountants, not having legal, not having advertising. We need to see money in there. Having negative cash flows for too long, if your first few months you're negative cash flow, that's usually okay. If it's a year, this is probably an issue. Again, you want to have your loan as income and your payments as expenses, and then also want to make sure that you're being careful about unrealistic expectations. So now what are we going to do with these? You're going to use them to apply for a loan, a line of credit, or a grant. You're going to make sure your goals are met by reviewing it. It's going to help you plan your growth, and you're going to update it as you notice things are changing. So now let's talk about funding. This is the stuff you're going to want to do to get the money. So first of all, at CDFIs like us, generally the process is very similar, but it is different at each place. So we're going to need an online intake form, an online application, an online personal information supplement, which is a simplified personal financial statement. We're going to need your business plan, 24 months of cash flow projections, documentation that you've been turned down for a previous loan. That doesn't mean you have to go on through a whole process. If you talk to a bank and they say, hey, we don't do new businesses and startups, that's enough. If you've been around, we're going to want to see your last 2 years profit and loss statements and recent quarterly balance sheet, along with 2 years of taxes. For everybody who is a 20% owner or more of the business, we're going to need to see 2 years of personal tax returns. We'll also need to see 3 months of those folks' personal bank statements and 3 months of the business bank statement. If you are a new business and don't have 3 months of bank statements, we're going to want to see proof that you have a business account open. Everything else here is optional. Reference letters are great. Things like resumes, leases, estimates, contracts, invoices, licenses, marketing materials, all of that kind of stuff is great. If you've got a chair in a salon and you're opening up your own salon and you come to me with 30 letters from people saying, I sit in her chair and I'm going to move over when she opens, it's going to be pretty easy for me to get that loan passed through. So what are we looking for? Again, turned down by a traditional lender. We want a thorough business plan with a clearly established business idea. We want to see your experience or your ability to get experience, the strength and realisticness of the cash flow. We do require collateral. So we're looking at the strength of the collateral. Of course, things like fully owned homes are the best, but we can get pretty flexible with that. Reasonable credit, you notice there's not a minimum credit score here. That is because we like to be flexible with that. What we're looking for is what you've been doing in the last 12 to 24 months. So have you been missing payments on things like your credit cards, your mortgage, or your car? Do you have past due balances? There are 2 disqualifiers, and that's a bankruptcy discharged in the last 24 months, and then a tax debt without a payment plan. If you have either of those, you cannot get a loan with us. You can apply while you're getting your tax payment plan worked out. We just can't approve the loan until that's done. We're also looking for the general economic conditions for the venture. Are you able to, is this the right time to open this business, right? So it's economy issues, it's market saturation issues. If you're opening up a pizza shop on a block with 12 other pizza shops, you're going to have to convince us. And then also your ability to repay the loan. Are you going to be able to get back into the workforce if the business is not successful? So the question here is, by fully owned homes, do we mean the home has been paid off, or can you still have a mortgage? So fully owned means that it is paid off. We can accept homes that are still on a mortgage. What we use is the equity as the collateral. So let's say that you bought the house for 100. It's now worth 125 and you owe 75 on it. You've got $50,000 in collateral. So that's how we would look at that. So talking about our specific loans. For new businesses, we're $5,000 to $35,000. Larger or older businesses, and that's anybody open for 2 years or more, you can go up to $150,000. Your term is dependent on the size of the loan. $35,000 might be 5 years. Anything over $100,000 is going to be 10 years. The interest rates are set between 6 and 12%. Generally, these loans have been going out, right in the 7, 8, 9% range. Again, we need collateral. If you are using real estate, we will need an appraisal that is 12 months old or newer, but don't get that until your loan is approved. Anybody who owns 20% or more of this business is going to have to guarantee the loan. Personal. If you have so many owners that you don't have anybody who owns 20%, we're going to want to see 3 or 4 folks. We do have an application fee. It's $100 plus a $25 for each credit report. So that's each person who owns 20% or more of the business. We only do TransUnion, and we only do a soft pull. And then there are some closing fees. Generally a $50,000 loan is going to walk out with just north of $48,000. We do automatic payments from your checking account. So we just set that up. There's no penalty for prepayment. So that means as long as your loan is 30 days old, you can pay it off for exactly what the principal balance is on that date. Also, if you know you can't make a payment, if you let us know at least a week ahead of time, we'll figure something out. Deferments, interest only, restructuring a loan, whatever it takes. We are going to visit you either in person or virtually twice a year, look at your books, let you know about resources that we have for you. And then about, what kind of businesses can use a loan and what can we use it for? What kind of businesses? Any business in our service area that's a small business, except for a very few exceptions. And that's the traditional sin industry, adult bookstores, 100% tobacco, 100% alcohol, things like that. We are, though, able to work with medical and recreational adult use cannabis. Now, what can you use? Just about any small business cost. So you can be furniture, rent, build out, salaries, supplies, all of that kind of stuff. There are just a few things that we can't do. If you have a business where you are in property investment, unless you are moving your business into 51% of a project, we can't pay for the real estate or pay for the rehab of the real estate. What we can pay for is things like your truck, your office, your reusable equipment, jackhammers, power saws, yes. Nails, drywall, no. So that's how we would think about that there. We also have what's called our credit builder loan. This is for folks who either have no credit or poor credit, who just want to dip their toe into entrepreneurship. You're good at fixing your friends' cracked iPhone screens. You might want to turn that into a little side hustle. Or for folks with an established business that need money quicker because this has a faster turnaround. It's up to $5,000, generally a 2-year term. The interest is 9%. It does not require collateral. And everything else is the same except for greatly smaller application and closing costs. So one thing I like to end with in these last few slides is, number one, there is nowhere better in the country with small business resources than where you are right now. Talk to all of us. Talk to MCE, talk to your local library. Every county has an economic development organization. Every county has a chamber of commerce. In fact, get to know the State Department of Commerce. Get to know all of the things that you can, like the Maryland SBDC, Small Business Development Center, run by the SBA. You can get one-on-one mentorship through them or through SCORE, which is the Senior Corps of Retired Executives. You might be able to find a mentor who's retired in the field that you were in. You also want to use your local universities, even if you didn't go to them. Classes need to do things for internships. They often have entrepreneur centers. They often have things like pitch competitions. So get to know your local universities and then make sure you're joining all of those local business organizations. I don't know how that happens. So the last thing is, when you're applying for a job, there are a few things that I like to say is to consider. Number one, don't quit your day job. While you're trying to start and grow your business, you need income coming in. If you can keep your job, that's the best way to do it. Number two, unless you are an accountant, you need an accountant. And in fact, even if you are an accountant, you probably need an outside accountant. And that's because they're going to make sure that your books are good, that you're able to file your taxes, and that you meet required deadlines by the state. The reason for this is if you do not meet them, you become not in good standing, and then you're not eligible for a lot of our services. Ask for help. That's that last slide. There's nowhere else better in the country with free help. Talk to all of us. We've got different experiences. We're all collaborators. We're not competitors. We're not going to be offended. Keep your money in your bank. As you are looking to get a loan for a business, it's not the time to buy a house, buy a car, open credit cards, things like that. And then think about your business as not being an island. People go to small businesses because small businesses are part of their community. So be a part of the community. Give to local charities. Join your chamber or your Main Street or whatever it is. It's really important that the community see that you are a part of their community, and then they'll become a part of yours. So we got a bunch of great classes coming up. We've got the SBA 8A Business Development Program. That's great if you're into government contracting. In fact, we've got a lot of stuff going on with contracting. We've got a two-part series in how to apply for your DBE, MBE, and SBE. That's minority, women, all the different disadvantaged and small business enterprises, all the different things that will allow you to get easier access to government contracts. We've got an AI webinar coming up and many, many, many more. And with that, I will open this up for questions. Well, I always think of my questions at the after these things end, so you can always feel free to reach out to me. My email address is nrudolph@marylandcapital.org. You can always also go to our website, marylandcapital.org, and click on the client intake form. Let's see. Okay, so if you're having trouble getting a commercial insurance quote, give us a call and we'll see if we can find somebody who can help you out. Alrighty, and with that, we will go ahead and end the webinar. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening, and thank you all for stopping by. Again, we'll be able to provide these slides, the spreadsheets, and the video will be on YouTube. Have a great night.